This is going to be a video on troubleshooting the washer wiper pump motor, the thing that sprays the windshield cleaner on the window, and troubleshooting it. Now, a lot of times the problem is simply that the motor's not bad or anything, it's clogged up. The little hoses that go from the pump itself to underneath the hood. There's a couple nozzles on top of the hood. You have to be clear. Also, to clear out those nozzles with little needles, like sewing machine needles. And I'm going to try to cover a few things. I'm doing this armchair because mainly this is going to be a wiring type thing, and also what you could possibly do to bypass the BCM if it's more complex. But I just want to go over it first to check, to make sure everything's clear as far as it's the fluid's full and that the hoses are connected and the hoses are not clogged up. A lot of times there's a clog that occurs. It occurs right at the nozzles. Use a small sewing machine needle to clear those out, and that is actually how you aim the windshield mist. The mist go on the window with the needles that go into the nozzle itself that's located on the hood. That's how you would aim those. Now, as far as wiring, I went over something before about dash lights with somebody, and it turned out it was the BCM itself. Now, the standard answer from a mechanic or dealership would be to get another BCM. You would have to have it reprogrammed with your VIN number, your mileage, and it has to match the options of the car. So you actually need to know the VIN number when the car was manufactured, because not every BCM is the same. So that's a complicated process. But in some cases, even though the BCM stores the VIN number and the mileage for the security system, in some cases, in some circuits, it's a simple circuit. And it turned out to be that way for the dash lights, and I assume it's this way for the washer pump motor that sprays the windshield. I don't think this is necessarily going to be the problem, but it's something that it could be. It could be. So I'm going to go through all the steps. Now, this is right off. I have dealer service manuals and stuff with all the connector pinouts. This is actually a specific page, not out of a dealer service manual. I don't know where I got this one from, but it's for the Generation 1 wiper washer wiring diagram for the Chrysler Sebring Convertible, right? So I'm just going to blow this up a little bit. And what you're looking at in this area right here, this is the multifunction switch. One thing to try, sometimes the multifunction switch is bad, which is the which includes the headlight stalk, the wiper speed, the pump motor on the wipers, the turn signals, the fog lights if so equipped. Sometimes if that switch is bad, just working it back and forth a bunch of times may get whatever's broken on it working. Or at least that'll tell you what the hell's wrong with it. In other words, you can replace the switch. Now, the place I recommend to get another switch for, say if you need a multifunction switch, is to I go to either rockauto.com or AutoZone. They have good quality switches. They're low prices. I have a video, a separate video on the multifunction switch. I'll probably put a little link up here. You can look at how to take that out. And if you're not sure if that's a problem, it would be good to take it out and check for that it's working. In other words, if there's an area for the washer when you're pressing on the stock, that it should make contact and make a connection between two wires. In other words, the wires where the stock goes is where the from the washer motor is a brown, dark blue wire. You see this where I have it highlighted in yellow. That goes to, that's your pump control. That goes from the stalk up on top of the steering column, where your turn signal is and the wiper motor speed and all that stuff is. And it goes down to the BCM. That's the body control module. And see what they're showing here, I'm going to explain this as clear as I possibly can, because it's really not as bad as you think it is. But it's a brown, dark blue wire that comes off the, and I can actually show the pin connectors on another thing, but you probably don't need to know that. There's actually two pin connectors that go into the multifunction switch, and it's going to be the one near the washer, where the washer motor stock is and the windshield wipers thing is. It's going to be that one, but there's only one there's only one brown dark blue wire. So in that case, it's that one. It says it's showing that it's coming off of the stock itself, and then it goes down to pin 15 on the BCM, and it shows this C3. Now I'm going to try to make this as clear as I possibly can because it's difficult to explain. On the body control module, that's located inside the car on the back side where all the fuses are located. In other words, when you're at where the fuse box is, in other words, there's a little access panel you pull off. I have a video on that where you pull that off under relays and fuses. I'll post that here. The BCM is on the back side of that where the fuse box is on the driver's side. You actually have to probably take down some screws on the bottom dash valance so you can see it. It's tucked up under there. It's got a lot of wires coming out of it all over the place, but you're only interested in one wire. Now, you could notice the BCM has all these different connectors. What that one was referring to was C3, which is a 22-way connector. That's the biggest connector. Now, it's not as daunting as you think. It's just a pain in the ass to get to. Believe me, that's the real problem. You're only dealing with one wire. It's a brown dark blue wire that comes off the multifunction switch, and it goes into the BCM, and there's a brown dark blue wire that goes out of the BCM to the pump itself. So you know what I'm getting at. The BCM is pretty, in this particular case, is working like a junction box. It's not doing nothing special. It's not going through any computer chip in this case. Now, what I would do is I would check to make sure that this brown dark blue wire is getting power when you activate the switch. The key has to be on, of course. You know, when you're activating a switch, if it's getting power, you could assume it's getting, it's getting power into the BCM. If it's not energizing that wire, because the main power is fed from the fuse box into the multifunction switch that powers your parking lights, your headlights, your wiper motor, and all this garbage, right? It's getting power there. If it's, if it's not getting power there, your wipers don't work too, all right? But if it's getting power out of the switch, then you know the multifunction switch is working fine. It's getting power into the body control module. So that where it goes in is on this 22-way connector. It's called C3 for reference purposes, but it's pin 15. But the main thing to look at is, you count. The main thing to look at is the color of the wire, which is a brown dark blue wire. Okay. So that's where it feeds into from the wiper stalk switch into the BCM. Pin 15 on a 22-way connector. That's the huge connector. Now, where it goes out from is the 14-way connector C1, and it goes out pin 10. Now, you notice that you're getting power into pin 15 on the BCM, but not out of pin 10. This 14-way connector, then you realize there's a problem inside the BCM. Well, you know what I would do, just to be bluntly simple about this, if this is the BCM problem, it may not be. It may be the stalk, or it could be a problem in the wiring someplace along the line that's broken. That's why it should be tested with an ohm meter all the way along. But sometimes it's the BCM, and then when it says it's the BCM, a lot of people don't want to fix it because this part is expensive. You have to have it, programmed by the dealer. But in this case, if it turns out after you check every single thing, it turns out to be the BCM's not making a connection from here, pin 15, internally out to pin 10, I'll just jump the wire. I mean, in other words, you would cut the wire at pin 15 where it goes in, and splice it to where the wire, cut the wire at 10 and splice it out. Because the fuse protection is actually external to all this. It has nothing to do with BCM at all. You know, this basically, in this case, is just working like a way to route the wires neatly. Now, I also want to point out, I'm kind of doing this armchair, but these are, I'm going to probably do over this in another video sometime, but about checking how I check things. You know, when you're checking these wires for, like, say, continuity using an ohm meter, you know, I'll probably explain how to use that better later. They have these like pointy ends on the testers usually, and they're like so dull. I can't stand those things. It's a very, you got to really push hard into the wire. So in other words, say you're checking this brown dark blue wire from the stock, the, you know, wiper control stock, a multifunction switch, whatever you want to call it, down to the BCM to make sure it's got continuity. Well, what I do is I use little sewing machine needles, because they push right into the wire real easily. It gets right down to the metal. It doesn't make a big hole in the wire or anything like that. And I'll use alligator clip on that with the other alligator clip attached to the ohm tester. I found that's a lot easier. So just to wrap this up, I just want to point out it could really only be, you know, not too many places. In other words, if you test the motor, the pump motor, and you find out it works with a separate power source, it's working fine, it's going to be either the multifunction switch, a problem in the wiring someplace, which probably is not the case, but it could be. It could be a break in the wire, or it could be in the BCM itself. So, like, here's the simple chart. In other words, it goes out. This whole big thing here is talking about the multifunction switch. In other words, all these little, like, these things over here are the speeds and intermittent speeds on a wiper. And right next to it is the washer pump switch. And you activate that. So that goes out from a brown dark blue wire down into pin 15 on a 22-way connector, which is on a BCM. Okay, under the dash, behind the fuse box. Then it routes through the BCM. It goes out pin 10 on the 14-way connector, and it goes straight out, same colored wire, brown, dark blue, and it goes out to the washer pump motor itself. So, you know, actually they could have just made this wire go straight from the wire, the washer, the stalk up on a multifunction switch, straight out to the pump. You know, it didn't really need to go through the BCM, but it's a neater way of wiring things, and basically what the BCM is doing in this particular case is making a simple connection. Now, you normally would not do these type of things with the body control model tool, the BCM, because it's actually got different things inside of it. I don't know what the hell's in there exactly, but not every single circuit that is going on in there is a complicated circuit. This is another one that appears to be a very simple circuit, and we found out that the dash lights, when they don't work, there's various reasons they could not work, but sometimes it could be the BCM. And when that happens, like, you know, and you got an older car and the BCM is broke, it's like the end of the world, because they're, I don't know, they're not cheap. They're not cheap, and you just can't go to a junkyard and pick one up and hope for the best, because even the same year car has different BCMs in it depending on the accessories. Then you have to have it programmed and all this other garbage. So in some cases you can bypass it. And I know on my car itself, somebody bypassed some stuff on there. Everything works. I don't touch it, but they actually have things jumped from the BCM from one wire to the other. It's probably the dash lights or something. I don't know what's on there, but it works. Everything works. But I want to point out this because it's basically three places it could be. You know, say the pump, you verified that the washer pump motor works with an independent power source, right? It can only be up in the multifunction switch on the stalk itself. There's something wrong where it's not activating there. And this is assuming you got power, you know, the fuse box is not blowing any fuses, and there's power going into the multifunction switch. Or it could be a break in that dark blue brown wire, that brown or brown dark blue wire, somewhere along the line. or it could be inside the BCM. So I hope this helps, because actually this is probably, it's a simple problem. The problem is with this damn thing is I know about crawling underneath the dash and like taking down that panel that's covering the BCM in the back, that's covering the lower dash panel. It's a pain in the ass to see down there. It's like pretty cramped quarters. But they're taking out the multifunction switch though. That's an easy task to do, and you might want to do that and check that first. Then check that brown blue wire where it's connected, on the connector that's going into the multifunction switch. When the multifunction switch is out, check it for continuity down to the BCM. And do it a piece at a time. But basically, that's the simplicity of it. And this is again is the BCM body control module wiring diagram. Basically, at pin 15, it comes in from the wiper stock switch, which is the washer pump control switch output. Right, it goes into pin 15 on a 22-way pin connector, and it goes through the BCM, then out pin 10 on a 14-way pin connector to the washer pump. It's actually a very, very simple circuit. It's just a matter of trying to find that wire, but there's only one wire, it looks like, that is brown, dark blue. So that should help a lot. This can be done, and if it is the problem in the BCM, I don't think you'll need to buy one. You can just bypass this one circuit.